We're just getting streaming up and ready to go. All right, sounds like we're ready to go. Make sure my phone is silenced. All right, so I'd like to call the June 19th, 2024 Franklin Township Board of Supervisors meeting to order at 6:59 p.m. In attendance are myself, Chairman David Gerstenhaber, Vice Chair Donna D, Supervisors Jim Johnson, Don Dowling, and has Betsy joined us yet online? No. All right, and Betsy will be joining us and later. She'll be joining us remotely. Also in attendance are the Township Solicitor, Melissa Reinstatter, Stanley Corbett from ACOM, Township Operations Manager Jeff Eastburn, Township Controller and Office Manager Melissa Ortega, and Township Secretary Stacy Hollis. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 members of the public. So let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. So now I'd like to open the floor to public comment. This portion may include comments relating to tonight's agenda items only. Commenters must state their name and whether they are a resident of the township or a non-resident taxpayer of the township. If you do not identify yourself, your comments will not be included in the official minutes. Do we have public comment? All right, not hearing any, we'll move on to minutes.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that the board approve the May 15th, 2024 Board of Supervisor meeting minutes. Could I have a second for that?
I'll second.
All right, thanks, Jim. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. And the motion carries 5-0. Oh, I'm sorry, 4-0. I don't think Betsy's not here, right? Okay.
And just to let everyone know, Melissa wanted to be here this evening, but she's not feeling well. So that's why she's not in attendance.
Okay, with that said, I can go ahead and do the May Treasurer's Report. This is a comprehensive monthly report of the township financials for the month of May 2024 and year to date.
I'm here, Dawn.
Oh, there you are. Would you like to take them?
Sure. Sure.
Okay.
Sorry, didn't mean
That's
to
okay.
interrupt, but I am here.
That's okay.
So the May 2024 Treasurer's Report includes the following disbursements. The general fund with disbursements and transfers of $138,844.24. The Park and Recreation Fund with disbursements of $12,334.10. The Open Space Fund with disbursements of $5,350.16. The Capital Reserve Fund with disbursements of $0. The Emergency Services Fund with disbursements of $0. The Fire Hydrant Fund with disbursements of $580.80. Leaving a balance in all funds totaling $2,893,217.21.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm sorry you don't feel good. I'd like to make a motion that the board approve the May 2024 Treasurer's Report as presented by Melissa Ortega. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
By Donna. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. I think Betsy's on 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn.
Okay, for the zoning officer's report, this report was compiled by the Township Zoning Officer Mark Gordon. In the month of May 2024, 10 permits were issued, $2,401.50 in permit fees, $0 in miscellaneous fees, $0 in recreation open space fees, and $0 in impact fees were collected. 18 inspections were performed. Back to you, Dawn.
I was gonna go, before we go to the, oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, before we go to the library, I did want to talk about the zoning officer's report. So, Jeff.
Yes, ma'am.
I know they have, we have some, at least we got the bamboo stuff taken care of, so that's good. Good job. But the 3327 Appleton Road, it seems like the extension's now into July. And do we have agreement that they're gonna provide a plan, or where are we at with this?
I can tell you that Mr. Pacillo did come in on June 4th,
Okay,
spoke to Mark Gordon. I was doing other things, but listening in when I could. Mark Gordon has really encouraged Mr. Pacillo to bring a sketch plan in. Now, as of late yesterday, he did email something. I haven't had a chance to look at it.
okay,
The other thing I wanted to let you know, he was also renting part of that space outside for someone else's trucks.
right,
So that is now stopped and
Okay,
those
oh.
trucks have gone away.
okay.
So there's still some there, but
Not
not
as many.
nearly the number that was there before.
All right, I take that as a positive.
Yes,
Okay, all right.
small steps.
So hopefully he does come back to us, because he has an extension time of July 19th. And if he doesn't, then we're gonna need to talk to our lawyers and see what's next.
Correct. And one thing I did want to bring up, so it is not a shock to anybody. When Chris Pacillo was here, he made a comment that he would like a demo permit because he may go the route of taking the house down. So the application was supplied to him and nothing else was said.
There was a demo permit granted on that property previously under a previous owner.
Correct.
Does that become null and void when the property changes hands?
I can give a little history if you don't mind. Chris Pacillo had bought that, and then he had talked about, well, I'm probably not going to tear it down. I'm not going to tear it down. Let's just see how it goes.
Sure.
So I made the comment of, if you're not going to tear it down, why don't you withdraw the permit, the demo permit? And he did. And I think the next week later, he put a roof on the place.
So I think his plans originally were to try and rehab it. Maybe his plans are changing. But at least we now have an opportunity to re-examine that demo permit when he comes and resubmits it. So that's probably a good thing that you suggested that. Okay, great.
Anything else, Donna?
No, I'm good, thanks, Jeff.
Okay, ready to roll. Okay, I would like to introduce my very new friend, David Payne, because we've done story time in the park, which we're going to do again every week, the month of August. So with that said, he's got another project he'd like to bring to our attention.
Yep, you got it.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I wanted to bring to the board's attention and ask for your support, not in a financial way, more in a material way, for a project which is really designed to encourage use of the really wonderful outdoor spaces which we have amongst really all of the townships and municipalities which we directly serve and who directly support us. And so I was thinking how, as a library, we could work to support and encourage use of these wonderful, wonderful open spaces. And the idea of public libraries loaning adventure or nature backpacks isn't new. But what is new or slightly novel is that we are creating these backpacks or customizing them to use for use of the local open spaces and parks and trails. Let me explain. It was suggested I bring a sample, so I have some visual aids here. So this is the backpack in question with our logo on. And inside, we will loan things like a compass. We will have a basic guide for young people on navigation. We will have basic nature guides on plants, wildlife, birds, and so on. We will have a pair of binoculars, magnifying glass. There's an insect jar as well. But again, what makes these distinct is that we are asking our supporting municipalities to contribute maps or trails of their open spaces. Some are doing it in different ways. West Grove, for instance, are giving us not a map of their parks, but more a walking tour of historic West Grove. Penn Township are putting in information about the Red Rose Inn. And so really, it's really what goes in is really up to you. I don't want to make more work for anybody. I've spoken to Jeff and the Parks and Recreation Committee. Everybody has been wonderfully supportive. And Jeff kindly dropped around some sample maps, which I think we're working on.
That's good timing.
Yeah, it's perfect timing.
And so I think Bamshire Preserve has been mentioned as well. And so I really encourage you to, whatever you contribute that supplements and support what you have on your website for your outdoor spaces. That would be wonderful.
So we talked about this at the last pro meeting, and it's very simple for us to give you some maps. We have a lot of maps, and we're finalizing our Cross and Park Franklin Township Franklin Preserve map. For the questions that we were having was, how would you protect those maps? Meaning, you don't want to just print out 100 copies because 100 copies are going to disappear. Are they going to be like placards or laminated, and you can just put them in the backpacks and they stay in the backpacks?
So the original idea was to have one laminated set, but since then, I think the idea has grown to having a set of maps, which, unlike everything else in the backpack, could be kept. So families would be encouraged, they'd have these at home and they'd be encouraged to return. That is an idea which most people support. Again, I don't want to make more work for anybody. I mean, we'd be happy to help with whatever we can do in terms of folding things and to make it easier for you.
So yeah, because I guess we can talk about this and what we want to do, but my thought was we would just give you the PDFs and you can print them off as you need them.
That's
and
fine.
Rather than just, hey,
That's
Franklin
fine.
Township, we need another 100 copies.
Yeah.
You can just do it as you or on your phone.
Yeah. That would be really welcome. I mean, I don't want to make more work for anybody. It's.
Jeff's very good at making what do they call it? QR codes. So they want to scan a QR code when they get
Right.
to the. We're trying to put them on our trailheads.
Yep.
So if they want to scan a QR code, they go right in.
That pops right up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's great.
I think the idea of having it that they can take it home encourages them to come back. Because story time is the same thing. We've gotten so many kids from other parks and other areas that haven't been there before, and they come and they say, "Oh my gosh, you've got the most beautiful park."
Oh, yeah.
So anything that I think encourages the kids and the families to come back and enjoy it, I think that's a great idea.
And so we'd be happy to make copies and whatnot. That's
Yeah,
fine.
I mean, from my perspective, I don't know what everyone else thinks. This is a pretty easy ask.
Yeah.
All of our maps are online and available, but maybe not perfectly formatted for a piece of paper.
Right.
So maybe as we're talking about this, our master plan, and we're going to talk about this when we get to the pro section, is to finalize kind of our trail system in Crossan and Franklin Preserve. And once we have that, it's very easy to just format it and hand you whatever you want, whatever format you need. And I guess having those QR codes as well makes it very easy. Everyone seems to have a phone now, so it's just,
They have an option.
they have options.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Thank
You're
you.
pulling all that stuff out of the backpack. I was like, man, I want a backpack. I want one of those. I want a bug jar and a magnifying glass.
It's a simple, low cost idea,
Yeah, it's
which
a
I
great
hope will
idea.
connect in a very simple way. And we hope to have it out, at least in whatever shape we can by the first week of July.
Mhm.
And then I'd love to, perhaps have a photo shoot or drop by and promote this, with whoever can be in a picture.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Great idea. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I don't think we're not, there's no voting or anything required, but it's just kudos. It's a cool idea.
As soon as we get them, you get 'em.
That's right. As soon as yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we want to make sure that you get a good map. So
Thank you.
I think our current timeline is August is when we're gonna have the final,
Yep.
everything pulled together, which would be perfect because September and October is a good time to go
Right.
out in the woods. So
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you
No,
very
thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
With
Yeah,
that
it's a great
said,
idea.
David, we need to come up with one more, a 3-point trifecta of stuff we're working on together.
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. Good.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was a perfect segue to our Parks and Rec and open space discussion. Andrea, do you have an update for us?
Hello, I do. First things first, Liam Kelly has been working on his scout project over at Crossan Park. I know his kiosk is up. It is not yet complete. I have a photo that he sent, and I'd love to share that. If you don't mind, Jeff, could I share?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. Go ahead.
Okay.
You should have authority now.
Okay, thank you. So here is a photo of Liam and the kiosk. It still needed at this point roof shingles, acrylic, a piece of acrylic over the front, obviously all the different items that need to be put into it. He's waiting on a map for us, but his project is well underway.
Looks great.
So
So
that's
kudos to
exciting.
Liam. Quick question. So all of this, so we have the old kiosk. I think what am I talking about? The hooks, the FSA hooks where folks put their badge. Is that going to be transferred over to that, or are we going to maintain 2 kiosks, or do you know what the plan is there?
We didn't discuss that specifically, but I see no reason why it couldn't just be transferred over to the new one. I think the old one would go away.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
I see no reason to keep it.
Yep.
Discussed specifically, I think, who removes it, but I'm sure we can take care of that.
Sure.
So
Cool.
now, also waiting on trail marker information. Paul has been working on getting that. I saw several emails. He's got information. He's waiting on some bids back from people. I know that we can get trail markers from Amazon, but what we'd like to do is get something that can be used throughout the park and really holds up over time.
Didn't we have some examples already that Paul had suggested?
Yes. And Liam found a company to make them, and what he had priced was somebody through maybe Etsy or something like that, a homemade type signage. And it looked great, but I think that they were expensive individually. And so what Paul was thinking was, if we, especially as we kind of go through this process of adding signage and doing all this trail work over at the park, maybe get kind of a little bit of a surplus of them, so that in the future we can replace, or we can put new ones that match Liam's exactly.
She wants something that's robust but replaceable easily.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, something that doesn't fit. I mean, I think the issue is, or the concern rather, is that something you get off Amazon is very thin. So it could easily be picked off of a post. The colors may fade. And so hopefully he gets some information soon. If not, Liam is going to complete his project. So, you know, I want to make sure that we get him information in as timely a manner as possible. So that, you know,
Do we have any contacts in the, I mean, we do have some contacts in the park services area that they might have some insight onto where they get their, you know, their signage. That might be a place to start.
yeah. And I do know Paul did get pricing from one company. He was waiting on pricing back from maybe 2 other companies just so that he could come to you guys with with the full picture with more than, you know, with some options rather. So hopefully we have that for you soon. Next up, we discussed some memorial trees at Crossan Park. One of the trees last year, it was very hot and very dry. I went over at one point to see how the trees were holding up. One of them did not make it through last year's heat. I know that Jeff sent somebody over to water those trees many times. They are out of warranty for replacement. I know Stacy and I had talked about that, I think last year when we were discussing it. So I'm not sure if when the program was put into place, there was any sort of discussion kind of past that warranty period. The tree that died was it was paid for in November of 2021, and I think probably if that was November, it probably wasn't planted until spring of 2022. And so, I mean, I'm not sure that the township is really obligated, or the Parks and Rec Board really obligated to do anything. It's I think something to discuss in the future if somebody wanted to do a memorial tree, you know, kind of how do we set expectations maybe for what happened. I mean, there's only so much you can do when it comes to nature. So that was a point of discussion. David Payne.
Well, I guess I do. We might actually need to talk a little bit about that because, like, when you have one of these memorial trees, you have a spot and there's a little placard there in memorial, and then there's no tree there. Probably something should be done about that, and maybe one of the policies we should consider would be something like, you know, you get one replacement if the tree dies. Right. And rather than say if it's 2 years, you know, we say you get a replacement if the tree dies. Or we put something that is more robust there, or like a bush or something. I mean, it'll be very odd that we'll have these like little mounds of nothing with the in memoriam. I think we should probably think about what the policy should be. And I don't think any of us have prepared to talk about it tonight because we're just kind of thinking about it now.
I think there are ways we could get a tree donated or find them or replace them. I mean, I think there's ways to do that.
Okay.
And I would be heartbroken if my tree died and it didn't get replaced or whatever.
Yeah,
so I feel very strongly that we could make that happen somehow.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of whose responsibility is, and maybe, like you said, the first time is one thing if it continues to die, but
Right.
I'm happy to look into it. It may not be a robust tree. I don't know. We just have to come up with
Let's-
it.
If it's a cost thing, I
Yeah,
mean, we
'cause it
have
can
a
be
lot of
expensive.
trees and tubes all over the place.
That's right.
We can replace it with one of those maybe, I don't know. You know, it's a
There
thought.
are ways to make it
Right.
work.
And I don't know if any, some trees might be hardier than others or more apt to die.
Mhm.
So if I don't even know how it gets picked. Does the person with the memorial, does the person pick it? Does the board pick it? I don't.
Andrea can correct me, but I think they had 3 or 4 choices to pick from the list. And it was based on the price
Yes,
for
I
that
picked-
tree so tall.
I picked mine. The kind of tree.
And I know I did for my parents too,
Yeah.
that list.
Do you know what the one was that's died? What kind it is?
I don't know.
I
Is it-
don't know. I could look it up. I think Stacy sent me an email on it. I'm wondering, Dawn, could we, what about, I mean, you have so many red buds. I mean, is that something that would,
Well, I was thinking that because we do, And that is a possibility that we could say we could replace it either with a tree that we're using, if we do any more riparian buffers, or if we could replace it with something we have. I mean, there's many ways that can be facilitated,
I feel like if you paid the money, can you hear me?
Okay.
Sorry. I feel like if you paid the money and it's, I don't know, $250, whatever it is, and you get a $10 tree as a replacement, I wouldn't be real pleased.
There's
I
no
don't have a
guarantee.
right answer,
Yeah,
but-
Betsy, there's no guarantee, like, there was never any guarantee made.
Oh, of course not.
For like, so, I think hopefully there's some middle ground that we can come
Right.
up with. Because I think they were up to about $500. Now, these are not cheap.
No, they're not.
So, which makes it even worse when you
Yeah.
lose them, right?
Right.
Right, so, I don't know the answer, but I think it is something we should think about. And of course, Angie, if the pro has any ideas on what to do in terms of replacements.
Well, and I
that's
know
something-
what tree, I know what tree it is, and and it looked like a pretty substantial tree.
Yeah, I just looked it up. It was an oak tree that was planted.
I was gonna say, I thought it was an oak, yeah.
So, okay, well, we'll discuss that. We'll see if, what we can figure out. We'll look at replacement costs. Now isn't the time to plant, but we'll look at replacement costs and try and come up with a plan.
Well, I think we need to come up with a plan to go forward with as well.
Yes.
I don't know if I heard this right, Jeff, but I thought we were kind of moving away from memorial trees because they are so expensive. And am I imagining that?
There was some idle talk about possibly looking into the price for like a memorial boulder, and you could put plaques on that in the garden. But that was just idle talk. No work's been done on that yet, outside of a few minor phone calls. And then once we have that information, we can talk to the pro about it.
Okay. Moving on, we had a discussion about David Payne's backpack program, and he's just spoken with everyone. So I think that's pretty well been discussed. There was a volunteer day. Pro put on a volunteer day at the beginning of June to help repair tree tubes. That went very well. We had discussed doing a second one last weekend, but I think we got everything pretty well cleaned up that first volunteer day. And so we appreciate everyone that came out and helped with that. The pro did discuss moving forward, possibly implementing some sort of trail cleanup day in our parks and preserves, something where everyone knew maybe the third Saturday or third Sunday of every month was a trail cleanup day, and members of the community could come out and help volunteer, clear trails. Nothing substantial, but we were talking about needing to weed whack the Keene Trail, and so maybe that's something a volunteer could do for us, and so that's something that we're going to try and develop. The last thing is there will be no July pro board meeting. And so you won't see us in July. And then one final thing, and I know that I think several people know this, I have decided to step down as chair of the pro board. And so the pro board is working to come up with somebody else to take on that role. And I will stay on the board, but for now, just remove myself from the chair position. And so I think probably in August, you may have somebody new in front of you at your board meeting. So stay tuned for that.
Well, thank you, Andrea. I really appreciate the effort that you put in as a chair. You are a wonderful chair. Glad that you decided to stay on the pro. So I appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I actually think it's good. It's probably a good thing. Our last chair, Greg, was the chair for a couple years, and once he moved on, nobody else I think probably understood or knew what kind of the role encompassed, and so I think it'll be a great thing for other members of the pro to kind of learn all the different roles within the group. But I appreciate, I like being a part of it and will continue to do so.
Great work on the tube trees, Andrea.
So I think that concludes the pro report, Andrea.
Yes, it does.
All right, thank you. So the next item we wanted to talk about is where we're at with the Crossan Park trail system. And we have Matt and Jeff here. I think Jim Johnson also went out today and took a look at where we're at. Okay, so Jeff, right here, you're showing the last map that Mary had presented for us that this was kind of where we were at about a month ago.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Mary really has some awesome skills with the GIS, so I really appreciate the hard work she's put into this. The first thing to discuss, if you can see this number 1 here and this star. Last weekend, Matt Thompson and a couple of several other volunteers and myself, we ended up installing this trail on the 15th. So I've walked it today with Jim Johnston and Matt. So I don't know if either one of you have any comments about that trail or not.
No, I'll just say it's done very well to the specs that we agreed upon. So
Okay,
it's good.
great.
So just a quick question on that. And, we have, does that just dump you out back into the field and then you cross the field to get back into the trail system? Or is it connected to the other gray lines like that those other 2 northbound trails?
Go ahead.
Okay, so you would come out where the hand is,
Yeah.
come across the cut grass, and then it would dump in here to this trail,
Okay,
kind of in this area.
okay, perfect.
So it just kind of finishes out the loop.
Gotcha.
There was another entrance back in here that we closed up. So now you would just access here and then get back into this stuff. So we just kind of cleaned one up, got rid of one, and created that newer entrance.
Okay,
Just clean it up a little bit.
perfect.
And I'm happy to say, with Matt's help and people from Hellbenders Bike Club, this trail through the center has been installed and is in.
Great. So now there's 2 routes you can take from the east and to the west pavilion.
Correct, sir.
Great.
And it eliminates that mess that was through the parking lot.
Right.
So now you're not cutting through the parking lot. Now it's kind of a continuous loop without having to go through the parking lot.
And we don't have to mow anymore, that trail.
The trail through the meadow will be gone.
Perfect.
So used to kind of come up through here to get into this. This will be gone.
Great.
So now you come down there, actually, I forgot to mention, now you pop out here right by the pavilion.
So they see
And
it,
it's,
people.
so if you're at the pavilion, you just pop right into this section too.
And you can continue
Or you
if
can
you'd
stay,
like.
right.
Yeah,
Or you
can
can all the
continue
way
down.
down.
Correct. It just always made sense to me to pop out at that pavilion.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're right there and it makes more sense that the trailhead's right there.
But there's like that intersection where all those trails converge.
That's at the bottom.
At the bottom.
That down at the bottom, but I think what we did kind of clean that up a little
Yeah.
bit, so it's not so confusing.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I walked that trail number 2 today, and it's a much easier trail to walk.
Yeah.
Not as steep. There's a little bit of steep from like the pavilion down to
Yeah.
the bottom, but that's the only steep part. It's much nicer walk than that straight downhill that was already there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. I'm gonna jump around a little bit. This trail here that I have the hand on, that's been in place but never mapped.
Oh, so is that something that is used or is that?
It is used. It's used a lot, used a fair amount. It
Okay.
kind of goes along the top of a ridge and it kind of has a big
Okay,
berm
I
coming
think I
down
know.
around
I think I
and
know
it dumps you right to the big bridge there.
Yep.
So it's been there for,
Ever, yeah.
I mean, since I started this.
It's just we've never captured it.
No.
Okay. And then there was one, if you scroll down a little bit to, no, just scroll it. I want to go south. Yeah, so that trail, that red line, there's that one road, it looks like it's been deleted already, where it was straight down.
No, I think you're back up. Go back up. I think you're talking this gray one here, possibly. That's the one that would bring you down to the big wooden bridge.
That's one of them, and I think there's one that's up here as well, right there, where it's an access road that goes kind of straight down to that bridge.
It's straight down, yeah.
Yeah, that's still there,
It's still there, but I don't know if anybody really uses it.
but there's an option now that you can avoid it.
Yeah, you really don't have to go up it if you don't want to.
Okay.
But it's straight up and down.
Okay.
I mean,
But you don't
ideally,
want to, but I think the whole point is we didn't want people going down that. We wanted them to go around
right,
okay, so that's what that little elbow is.
Go ahead.
correct. So you would, all right. This is actually still here. I don't know if it's getting mowed and I don't know if people use it that much, but if you went out there, you could find that trail.
Okay.
So, ideally, it needs to be switchbacked in there to go up that, so it's not coming straight down fall line.
Okay, so that's still the fall line trail.
Yeah, that's the straight down trail, correct.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
We were thinking about just getting rid of that and having it slope down maybe later.
Either eliminate or do some sort of like, kind of some switchbacks down that you could eliminate that straight down
Yeah.
fall line.
Okay.
Because actually the same thing, I was gonna do a very minor switchback right in here, just to eliminate kind of right where the hand is, it's the same thing, it's just running
Yeah.
straight down that trail, straight into the stream.
Yeah.
So if I could, I mean, you're talking a very minor switchback in there just to, again, get away from fall line.
Mhm.
So,
All right, and then moving on to 4, there we go.
So, the Saturday before last, we did work down in this area. A lot of progress was made. And like to have Matt use the mouse because he knows it better than I do. But I think there's a way of wanting to take a trail right down this way, but go ahead.
so, it would roughly, and we ribboned it that day after we were done. The new trail would, hold on, let me get my bearings here. Okay,
It's right near that black,
Yeah,
where that black
yeah.
arrow is.
so we would come up, kind of follow this up and hook into this trail. Is that right?
Yeah.
No, sorry. This trail, I don't think has been mapped all the way across. This trail continues and dives right into here.
Correct.
Okay. So what we marked was a trail that would come up and dump into that trail that continues across that you can't see.
So all the area, so where your hand is there, you can put it back to where, yeah, that's right there.
Yeah.
So that, the area north of that red line, the dashed and the solid would likely be kind of abandoned because it does get wet. And the new red line would extend from Old Post Road, which is that straight red line, up to where you just were.
Yep.
Right, okay. I think that's illustrated on this, I have a map here.
Yep.
That it's illustrated on pretty
Yep.
well. So now I'm thinking in terms of finalizing a map so that Mary can help us, because I don't want to keep going back and forth with her and driving her nuts. I kind of want to just get to this is where we're at. Yeah. Are we pretty comfortable with what we want to do and say, okay, this is it. This is what the trail system is going to look like. I mean, I think other than that, the tweaking the fall line trail and on the
Yeah,
southern
you're
side.
talking pretty minor little.
Yeah, we
it
don't
might
have
not
to-
even show up on GP, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
we wouldn't have to change our map in
Right,
order to.
exactly.
So we can probably implement these designs, get the final map, buy the markers, and give you a map. We'll be done by August.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. That's good because I think one of the goals we set for ourselves was getting that trail system done, and
So who's actually mapping it out?
Mary.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So I don't know, Mary. Is Mary on? I think she was.
I think so.
am.
Hi, Mary. So do you actually go and walk it and then make the map, or do you just take our edits and make the map?
Well, at this point, I would just take your edits and make the map. Prior to this, I did get actual GPS data. I actually think it is from Matt.
Okay, so that's what I was going to say. If need be, I could go out there and map it because I know what's getting eliminated, what needs to stay. Then, because I mean, there's some talk of this grade trail going away too, because it's not really needed anymore. So that's what so if we can coordinate that, where I go out and ride it or whatever and map it, and then I give you that file, then you can take it from there.
Yes, that is exactly what I can do.
Perfect.
Okay.
That's great.
Okay.
Thank you, Mary.
Mary's awesome.
Easy peasy. I love it. Cool.
Can we proceed with
100%. I think
Okay.
so. Yeah.
any questions? Okay.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. Thanks,
Yeah.
Jeff. I appreciate the work on this.
Yeah, again, the volunteers on the 8th and the 15th were awesome. I'm very, very appreciative of them.
And one of the things, it's not obvious with the way these maps are laid out now because it contains trails that are getting eliminated and it looks like a lot more spider webby. When this is done, this is something that I think is important, is it's maximizing continuous open space. So wildlife can remain in areas and not be disturbed, and it optimizes the trails. So we still have plenty of mileage in that park while kind of maintaining the habitat. So thank you guys for doing such a great job on this. It's really appreciated.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, moving on. Moving on, we have another exciting program we're working on. And Stacy is well underway with all of our plans and all of our money and all of our ideas. So I'm going to let her take over with some of this and she can tell you all our good ideas.
Thanks, Dawn. So I'm happy to work with Matt with the new trails. He's going to be joining us with his group for a fun run in the morning of our Franklin Fall Festival, which is happening September 14th. So save the date. I'm happy to say that we have 17 sponsors. Lamb, we've got Stan, we've got the library that's going to be joining us, Matt, of course. So I just want to thank all of our sponsors. We have exceeded our initial goal for sponsorship money. So thank you so much for that. And we have 26 vendors and information booths that are lined up currently. Just to give you some perspective, last year we had 30 total. So we're on track to gain some more. And we're going to start our next push for our next meeting is next Thursday. So we're going to start focusing on marketing and getting more information out on Facebook and partnering with our other people that have signed up to kind of cross market for that. And we're also going to be creating an itinerary for the day and push for volunteers. So anyone that's interested, please visit our website, please visit our Facebook for more information and sign up. Give a call to the office.
Great work. Yeah.
Thank you, Stacy. As a committee, we've been working really hard on this and we're very excited. And we decided from last year, it was so successful that of course the reward for good work is more work. So it has to be as good, if not better, for this year coming up. So we're real excited about it.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's nice to see how it gains its own momentum now. It's great. It's really good. Oh, thank you.
And I'm on again with the Healing Garden. And the Healing Garden, happily, Betsy, my garden queen, is on with us. It is in really good bloom. It's our 3rd year. We've got the Veronica, the bee balm, the mountain mint, the milkweed. It's all starting to come in and look beautiful. So if you get a chance, I think I put a lot of stuff on Facebook, and I try to put out everything on email for those who don't have Facebook. But I also had a little family butterfly release there last week, and we released 3 little painted lady butterflies in the garden, which was really fun. But we have all kinds of programs coming up. The FSA is going to move the little library from the tot lot over from the pavilion side to the parking lot side, because I think it'll get better visibility. It'll be easy for people to just come out of their cars and go to the little, and I already have somebody promising to decorate that one. So far, so good. And of course, all of you that have seen the Bluebird report, Amy, our wonderful Bluebird queen, is monitoring those boxes. We've had fledglings. We have tree swallows. If you go over there, as Jeff said, the road down there at the bottom is like Bluebird Alley.
Heaven, yeah.
And with that, we put 2 brand new ones out here at the office because there were ones out here and they had died. We put 2 new ones up, and they both have nests. And the one right by the beautiful rain garden here already has 2 eggs in it, I can tell you from today. So we have another brood running out here. So speaking of the rain garden that's over here at the office, I went to the rain garden program that was run by Shane Morgan, and she works over at White Clay. She's helped us a lot with things. She was instrumental in putting the rain garden over here with a Boy Scout help. And Donna here weeds it for us, but we're going to put more plants. We're doing some attention. It needs some more plants. And Shane gave us a brand new sign because ours is all faded. So we have a brand new sign to put up at the rain garden. It's the one that's out there, but for free. So we've got this to put out when we refurbish our rain garden. And so things are just buzzing along. I'm still pulling red buds out of there and giving them away. So I still have a list of some people that want them. But if anybody else wants a little red bud seedling, just let me know. Thank you very much.
Okay, next up is Anthea Consorto is here to give a Big Elk Creek project update.
And if the board's okay with it, once Auntie is done, I would like to add something about Mount Olivet Trail, please.
Sure.
Hi, Anthea.
There we go. So meeting number 2 is basically focused on the environmental aspect of what they're doing with the riparian buffers and all of the restoration they want to do. They're working on a plan to restore the wetlands and potentially work on restoring the floodplains. Jack Hill from DCNR is putting the scope together for a watershed assessment to plan for stream and wetland resources. They did make a plea for any information that any of the townships may have on the historic mills and dams that were in the area to support this project.
Where's Paul?
So basically their plan is to make an assessment and figure out what the opportunities for the restoration would be and where it would be feasible along the creek. There are funds for improvements on Big Elk Creek, but no discussion on how much funding is available. The task force did end up talking about the politicization of budgets and how, depending on people getting voted in and out of office and things of that nature, how that can affect the budget for DCNR. There was a demand for respite and recharge, according to John Hollis. So hopefully we can use that to our advantage, because if you're going to build everything up, how is that a place for respite and recharge? They did say the tree planting that they did recently was more than 74,000 trees and shrubs. It's the largest planting project that DCNR and the Chesapeake Bay Alliance have ever accomplished. And they will be going back and replacing trees yearly as they die for the next 5 years. The tree tubes will stay on the trees until they naturally break through them, and they will continue to spray herbicides around the trees and mowing and fertilizing throughout this process. A few of us are very concerned about some of the areas they planted trees in, and the impacts of all the chemical use that they'll be using, because they are near the creek. There are a number of endangered meadow plants that need full sun to thrive. And we feel when they planted these trees, not enough studies were done recently. Actually, I don't think any recent studies have been done to map out where those endangered species were. I did ask the question during our little field visit as to how they determined where to avoid when they planted trees. And the answer I got was that they trained the volunteers to identify basil rosettes, and if they found any, to not plant trees within the 5 trees within that area should be left unplanted, and they should let them know that they saw this. The problem with that is they did the tree planting in the beginning of March, and there was nothing for them to see. Not to mention, not all of those plants have a basil rosette when they start to grow.
Right.
So there's a lot of concern.
What was the purpose of the tree replanting? Simply because more trees is more gooder? Like, what is the reason for it?
So the original approach was that they were doing riparian buffer repairs.
Okay.
Right, which nobody's going to argue about, but riparian buffer only goes so far. And then they went in and started filling in areas that were open meadow. I guess they think they're returning it to a more natural state by doing this. They didn't really give an answer. They basically said it's all riparian buffer repair. That's what their blanket statement is.
Yeah. Some of it was riparian buffer, the other
exactly.
was eliminating mowing maybe, or
not just eliminating mowing, but perhaps shading areas that were open and sunny, because when they want to put camping in, people don't want to camp in full sun.
So you'll have a camping area that's shaded. Yeah.
Right. So we do have concerns. The Natural Heritage Program is the ones that had come out from DCNR and identified all of those species. None of them were actually on site during the tree plantings. They will be at our next meeting on July 1st. So we do have plenty of questions prepared to ask them. Whether or not we get honest answers, I don't know. So we have concerns there. During the meeting, Spring Lawn and Mount Olivet trails were incorrectly referred to as state park trails. I very quickly stood up and corrected them, and reminded them who owns the easement on Elk for Spring Lawn, and that Mount Olivet is owned by Franklin. I think it was a little slip by John Hollis referring to them as state park trails, and that sometimes state park trails get damaged. He did. So I quickly said, but that's fine for state park trails. These are not state park trails.
Right.
And that started a whole argument about repairing our trails. But they are claiming that they will work with the townships to repair the damage caused by the subcontractors. And Rob continued to tell me that he is in constant contact with both Jeff and Mike at the townships, which I know is not true. So that's what he's telling DCNR anyway, that he's in constant contact with the townships. So hopefully that changes. We did tell them they needed to work on their communication and their respect for the townships. Whether they listen to us or not, who knows? We feel that the next meeting on July 1st is going to be probably the most crucial meeting of all of them. It is the one about visitor satisfaction and infrastructure. So there will be a site visit scheduled that day at 2:30 in the afternoon on July 1st. Anybody, and I think this would be very important, anybody from the township that wants to show up, I think should, as far as township supervisors or employees. I do know County Commissioner Eric Rowe is planning on coming out for the trail visit. they're gonna, as far as I can tell, go through all the different areas of where they want to build different buildings. We did argue the point that after the first meeting, they had agreed to supply the slideshow presentations that they had, but they hadn't done that yet. So we did push that issue. And today, the official transcript and the slideshow came out to the public. So that's now available. You can see the slideshow about all the environmental stuff that they're working on. And any requests for additional information for the July 1st meeting, well, needed to be made by today. So hopefully anything that needed to be done is done. I did request the Natural Heritage Program, so they will be there on July 1st.
And July 1st is open to the public, right?
No. The meeting is not, but I think the site visit is,
Site visit, yeah.
I don't think they can turn stakeholders away. It's not open to the public, but I think if you were to show up, they're not going to tell you you can't walk with us through the park.
Okay.
I mean, it's open to the public anyway, right? So,
Mhm.
but yeah, the July 1st meeting is going to be critical.
Antia, was the last meeting still monitored by, or like protected by?
So yes, we still have armed rangers at the doors and patrolling the land. The bulk of this second meeting was nothing but, well, was supposed to be nothing but PowerPoint presentations. They literally weren't going to give us an opportunity to share any information or any of that. They asked us to hold all our questions until the end of their presentations, but we went to break and came right back into another preparation for another slideshow. So a handful of people got a bit annoyed by that and spoke up and kind of forced the discussion of what exactly is the purpose of this task force, because they have experts in the room on the task force in all of these different environmental things, and they were not consulting them at all. These are experts that are not only experts in their field, but experts on this property in particular. And they did not consult them. They did not ask their opinions on any of that. They were basically just giving us this slideshow presentation of this is what we are doing, this is what we have done, and this is where we're going. There was not any open discussions or any of that. So
Yeah, so that's why you're there, right? To provide.
Right, so that's why-
They're gonna listen to you, but that you should be able to provide input.
right, so that's why we forced the discussion about what the purpose of the task force was. And a good bit of time was spent on the issue with the various comments of, you're not letting us speak, you're not asking the experts for their opinions, you're not, doing any of this the way we said we were going to do it, but there was no resolution. And then when they did send out the proof of the transcript for all of us to approve, they also sent with it a survey for us to take, asking our opinions on how we felt DCNR was doing with these environmental issues. Basically, it was I strongly agree with DCNR, or I agree, or I am neither agreeing nor disagreeing, I disagree, or I strongly agree. And you checked a box, and then they would give you a little area at the bottom to leave your comments. So that was them asking for our input, I guess, for the environmental stuff.
Are they going to go over the results of that?
I hope so.
The next meeting?
I don't
or
know that
maybe-
I don't know that they will. I don't know that there'll be time, given that this is an infrastructure meeting and it's going to be probably relatively.
So they checked their box that they gave you a survey.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't, and that's what my concern, I was about to say, my biggest concern is we're through a third of these meetings. There's only 6 of them. We're already through a third, and I don't feel like this is doing what it was intended to do.
So you got some, like you have John Lawrence there, you have other, are they saying anything, doing anything? Because they're being played along with the rest of us.
I can say John Lawrence was very vocal in this second meeting. Once we all kind of broke through about, hey, what are we doing and why are we doing this? How did we get where we are? How did this can of worms come about? Because this was not the original intention. I was quickly corrected that, it may have been implied that this was going to be a preserve, but that was never agreed upon anywhere. So there was a bit of arguing in that regard. But I don't know. Eileen, do you have anything to add?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. I think that probably one of the most telling comments was when I asked if we would be able to see the plan prior to it being released so that we could comment. And John said, oh, I don't know. And that's when we were like, what really is the purpose then for this committee if we're not going to be involved in crafting it, if it's just us looking at what you're doing? So I think that kind of, I don't know, Antia, what do you think? I thought that kind of took them aback.
It did. They had no intention, I think, of letting us see the master plan until everyone else saw it. So now I think meeting number 6 is them saying, well, here's the master plan that we wrote. What do you think? But that means that gives us one meeting to say, hey, this, and this we don't like. And then whether they change it or not, who knows? Because there's no longer a task force. We did pose the question about extending the scope of the task force past the 6 meetings. And they were very cagey about the idea of extending it or turning it into something else as far as an advisory committee or anything like that. I can say that I spoke to the commissioners and chased down the idea that 60 days prior to DCNR being able to build anything on the property, they have to give a written report to Chester County. We found out exactly who receives those reports. And as soon as they receive a report, they will be notifying the county commissioners, because that gives us a 60-day clock to file an injunction in court if we need to.
So that's, you don't have to ask for that, that they have to do
They
that by law.
have to do that by law.
Okay, so you'll be looking for it.
Right. But beyond that, I mean, this July 1st meeting, I think, is going to be critical. So if any of you, I know it's the middle of the afternoon on a weekday and a week of a holiday, but if anybody's available, I mean, I will be there, unless I'm unforeseen sickness or something crazy, but I plan to be there. But I think it would be good to have more than just my eyes on it, especially when we're walking around talking about putting in buildings and roads. And James actually went to, what was it, May 20 something? They had May 26, something like that. The Memorial Day weekend, they had a hike on Spring Lawn, which again, they did not ask Elk's permission to do. And they had it was an informational hike about invasive species and native species. And the whole big elk thing did come up in conversation at that point. And the woman who's their educational specialist, was expressing how excited she is about the new education center that they'll be getting near the creek, because you can't have it up toward the road because kids can't walk that far down to the creek. And so she has to have someplace close by for them to be able to go out and see the creek and have her teach them about things. So they're planning, from the sounds of it, an environmental building on the Franklin side of things down by the creek with a road that goes all the way down to it for buses and all to get to. Just a heads up. In that marshland that they were just talking about potentially restoring.
Yeah.
So how are they going to have a building walkthrough on the 1st if they don't have our historical information, the historical site information yet?
Oh, because they're considering the historical site information the ruins. So they did ask in one of the questions of the surveys if we support the preservation of the historical ruins and whatnot on the property and the interpretation of said ruins. And my question was, and also making sure that we're, they did bring up the Mason-Dixon line and the Lenni-Lenape, and then again, the Freedom Seekers and Underground Railroad. So I did pose the question, I'm familiar with the Lenni-Lenape, I'm familiar with the Mason-Dixon. Could you please, let me know? I'm not familiar with the Underground Railroad being on that property. Could you please provide me with that information? So I did ask that question, but I can't support any interpretation because I don't know what that means. Does that mean they want to build a huge building for the historic interpretation of things? Or does that mean they want to put in little kiosks on a trail? That's a huge difference. Yeah. A kiosk, sure, why not? But as far as putting in a building, and I would assume that would be part of a visitor center, but who knows? There could be a separate building, or it could be, like I said, kiosks along the trail. So I think that's being brought up in the next meeting as well. They want to talk about visitor safety because there's concerns about visitor safety in the area, and bathrooms.
What
And
does that mean, visitors? Like someone's going to get attacked, or they're worried about poison ivy? What?
it was it was written up as part of in the first transcript, so I guess I can bring it up. They're concerned about the safety and security of Blacks and people of color coming to a predominantly white area.
I also want to say, I'm sorry to interrupt, Antia, but
Interrupt, please.
a lot of the questions were very piecemeal, where if they were approaching this situation in a comprehensive manner, sitting down and doing an assessment of all of the resources, both natural and historic, coming together with, these are the ideas we have for this property, but not really identifying anything yet. And doing studies, so you're starting at the base level with all of the information appropriately. These piecemeal questions are superfluous. That just doesn't even make any sense that they would ask it in this manner. Everything would be working together to identify what's the most appropriate use of the property and what are the goals that we have for this property. And this whole time it's been more, these are the 4 areas that we're working on for our park master plan. And we're going to put that square peg in that round hole, whether you like it or not. And we're just going to, jerry rig it. In my opinion, this is how it's, so they're not really doing comprehensive planning, which is what a master plan is.
They did say, because we did bring up the watershed assessment and planning for restoration of the watershed and floodplains, it was brought up that you just planted thousands of trees in one of the floodplains. So what does that mean? And they said, basically, if we decide that that's an area that we will restore, those trees will be removed. So they just spent an awful lot of money to put a bunch of trees in that they may or may not remove if they decide to do restoration in that area. So that it goes to what Eileen said, they don't have a plan. They're just throwing things and hoping something sticks. And I think they were just really excited to say they just did this 74,000 tree planting because it's this big, huge number that none of them have ever.
And trees are always associated with good.
Right, exactly. But what they're not understanding is if you walk out there now, you see these perfect circles where they're applying herbicide every month and they're mowing and they're fertilizing and,
Killing all the wildlife there.
Yes, exactly. And we're spraying herbicides that aren't going to be helpful if you're trying to put in a pollinator meadow. And it's just very disconnected. It doesn't make sense. So I have an awful lot of concerns.
All right.
Yes.
So would you like to talk about the
yep.
policy committee?
So John Lawrence approached me earlier in the week and posed the idea of holding a Republican policy committee hearing. The tentative date would be July 9th. It would be, I think that's a Tuesday. It would be in the morning. It's normally a 2-hour process. Basically what it entails is himself and the committee chair and whatever Republican representatives from the state of Pennsylvania want to come down and form a panel. And then there are people that come and testify. And so it would all be regarding Big Elk Creek. They're looking, right now we're working on a list for people to testify. It looks like it would be more experts in the area, county commissioners potentially, township supervisors, a representative from the public. And you would basically submit your testimony, written testimony first, and then you go that morning and present your testimony, and you either would give a summary of what you wrote or you could read your whole testimony, and then they ask you questions. So it's a whole lot of fact finding. From what I understand, it does not move legislation, but it can drive the policies that they want to put forth. And it could potentially affect budgets and things of that nature. So that's in the works. The date is tentative at this point, but it would be held locally.
And it's not just open for Republicans.
No.
It's the Republican Party's policy committee.
Yes.
And it's a hearing, and you said it well, it's just to sort of establish what their policy might be towards this issue. It'd be a public meeting.
Yes, it's open to the public.
We'll have a representative from Franklin Township, likely a representative from Elk Township, some other folks. I think you were also mentioned to be perhaps part of that to testify. And it's really another opportunity for the public to get together and at least have some representatives sort of voicing their concerns about what's happening. There's very limited outlets to do this, and this might be a nice way to actually have another. And DCNR is going to be invited, of course,
Right.
to this as well, to discuss their plans.
And it's also a good way for the press to get involved again and to keep it in the forefront. So it is open to the public. Anybody can show up. The more people that show up, I think the better, because it'll look like it's, the issue that it is, make sure people understand what a big issue it is for the area. And it gets it on the radar of politicians who may not be aware of it. So I don't see any downside for us to participate in this.
When will we know, what time and where?
I am going to try to, I was supposed to have a conversation with him yesterday and missed the call. So hopefully we'll touch base tomorrow.
Just get a message to Jeff or something?
Yep, as soon as I know, you'll know.
Yeah.
So I'll either email all of you or I'll call Jeff and let him know.
Yeah.
But the tentative date was July 9th, because from what I understand, the next date that was available wasn't until September.
So July 9th, I think it's like 9 a.m.
Yeah.
is the date and time. And really right now, the focus is finding a location. So there's a couple of locations. It's local. It won't be in house. There's local here. And there's a couple of locations being bounced around. So.
And I did want to let you guys know there's an article coming out probably within the next week, because it goes to the editor tomorrow, in the Daily Local. And I have an interview tomorrow with the Chesapeake Bay Journal as
Great.
well.
Congratulations.
So we are staying in the public eye as much as we can. And that's where I'm at. If you have any questions, just let me know.
Hey, I want to thank you for the work that you're putting in. I think when you I don't know what you thought it, but I'm assuming you thought this would just be something that was a, one and done. Hey, I'm concerned about this, not a full-time job that it's turning into. So I appreciate it. It's definitely a lot. It's definitely a lot to take on.
It's a bit.
So, but it's appreciated.
We
you.
all do.
Thank
We
you.
all do.
More than you know. People do appreciate you.
Can I, David? if it's
So
o-
actually, that is important. So one of the things that concerned Franklin Township was kind of the access or liberties, I'll say, the liberties that that DCNR was taking with our property. And one was kind of tearing up one of our hiking trails, walking trails, Mount Olivet Road, with their contractor equipment. And you have an update on that and where we're at. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir, and the board. I can say since the last board meeting, contact with DCNR has increased exponentially on their part. Not to get into all the minutia, I did include the board with the emails. I did go down, we looked at Mount Olivet Trail. We did clear the ditch line along there because we have some springs to get that water back in the ditch line. So things are flowing as they should now. And we shouldn't have a problem with ruts as long as we do regular maintenance. We had been a little lax with that on that trail. Cut to the chase, I had sent an email to Rob Campion expressing the importance of him having contact with the township and about asking permission to use Mount Olivet Trail and not just going out and doing it. Things were going pretty well. On June 7th, I did get a call from Mr. Campion. They had asked if they could go in and do maintenance on the tube trees. I'd asked him for all the information I was looking for: equipment size, weight, length, photos. He didn't have it at that point. So he said, can we reach a compromise, park a truck inside the gate, and then just use a gator to get down the trail? So I said, yes, of course, that would be fine. So as of this past Friday, I've still been waiting for the information from DCNR. Photos, length, weight, all that happy stuff. Mr. Campion let me know about an hour before he left for leave on Friday, and he's going to be going to the 24th. that he apologized for not getting the information to me. One thing I was a little concerned about, I just wanted to bring to the board's attention, he brought up on June 14th, he says, I am, and I'm quoting, I am of the opinion that the Commonwealth and its approved designees do not need township permission to access Commonwealth property from Mount Olivet Road. Again, I've been trying to get him to use Mount Olivet Trail. So I've been trying for Commonwealth purposes under the current circumstances. So I don't know what changed between the last meeting and the 14th. So I have been pushing back. I've included Lexi Rose as well, saying we need this information because the next time they want to get in is on June 24th. Well, that's Rob Campion's first day back from leave. So I'm pressing Lexi for that information to supply it and not to expect us to give a snap decision on the 24th.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's interesting that we've created this trail. We've closed this road. We have a bridge that we're concerned about, and I'm not sure how they can take a position. I don't know why they're taking this position. Like, why would they be this hostile? Why wouldn't they just say, here's like, it's not, we need to protect our property.
Yes.
And I don't see how, like, this is not an eminent domain situation, which is what it seems like they're saying. Like, we can execute eminent domain because we've got a park nearby.
Right.
Doesn't seem appropriate. And I'm not trying to be hostile. I'm trying to find a place where we both can work together.
Yes.
Because we're taking on a lot of liability that they seem to be unconcerned about.
Agreed. So I have pushed back with Lexi and Rob. Lexi is on leave too, but she does answer on occasion. So she is supposedly gathering this information. But again, I've reinforced the position of don't give it to us on the 24th and expect us to make a decision on the 24th, period.
Yeah. So I did bring up the bridge in the meeting and how the big equipment shouldn't be going over it and all of that. And they basically told me my information was very wrong and that it is rated for X, Y, and Z according to, I guess, PennDOT or whatever. And that they can take any of their equipment across that at any time without any issue. And I reiterated again that it was township property and it's not a road, it's a trail, but I think it's falling on deaf ears and they don't seem to be concerned about the bridge. They said the bridge is fine. It's rated. We can take all of our equipment across it.
And I can assure the board, we talked about the bridge at length between the last meeting and this last Friday. So he clearly understands our concern. Whether he chooses to accept it's a different thing.
And it's kind of a moot point whether the bridge can take it or not. It's that road has been closed. It is rated as a trail. No motorized vehicles are permitted. All of a sudden they are simply because an opinion from DCNR. I know you wanted to say something, Melissa, so please.
Yeah. Sure, I'll weigh in through legal's eyes here. So this is a township road that was abandoned or essentially vacated. It's no longer used for vehicular access. This is a township bridge that the township would be taking on liability for any of these large vehicles going across. It's legal's opinion that you can close the road. The Commonwealth does not have the ability to go through if you, for example, change the locks on a gate so they can't get through.
At this point, I'm not sure we have any other choice. They seem to be completely resistant to this idea that this road is closed, that we have certain liabilities. I mean, that's I think the next step. That has to be the next step.
When you have to watch how your first responders are notified too. Somebody called 911 from Spring Lawn this week, and the call was routed from 911 to DCNR, not to Elk.
I've got an excellent relationship with the state police, so I can make sure that information gets given to them. But just to let the board know, anytime we change locks and the combination changes, it does go to the state police, it does go to emergency services. So we do make the effort on the staff level to give that to them.
Why do we need, so that road is closed, period. Why do we need state police and emergency access?
If somebody got hurt, you need to be able to get an ambulance down there to get to them. Yes.
Right.
So again, we changed the locks. What does that do for us? And how DCNR is going to get this combination again? How did they get it in the first place?
Well, they got it the first place. It was a spirit of working together. Now, what it was, Dave, before the January town hall meeting, there was a back and forth. After January 10th, it stopped.
Let's do that.
Change the locks and we keep the combination in-house.
Yeah, 100%.
Got it. Understood, changing the locks.
Thank you.
There was no reason for them to take such a combative approach. There's just no reason for that. Just talk to you. You're trying to find a solution forward.
And again, Donna, I was so shocked in a good way after the last meeting because he picked up the phone and we were talking about mutual respect.
Yeah.
And then again, Friday, an hour before he went on leave, I read you his opinion. So I don't know what's changed or.
Even so, there's no reason to not to work with you because you're not saying no. You're saying you can do X or you can do Y or we can figure this out.
They're flexing their muscle because I think they want to come in and do both tricks.
Right, and see, and I'm pretty comfortable on our part saying, we've tried the cooperative approach, reaching out, wanting to work with them, we've asked for information, and as of today, we don't have it.
And they were mad. No, I still.
It's our trail.
So I think we've exhausted this conversation for now. We know what our next steps are. Thank you. Donna, should we move on?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think it's me, it's Dave, too.
Oh, road program. The 2024 road program update.
I'll keep it short and sweet. Flint Hill Road has been milled and the base repair has been done. Mackey Court has been milled as of today. There's going to be some repairs to Mackey Court tomorrow morning while Flint Hill Road is being paved. So the ultimate goal is to have Flint Hill and Mackey Court paved by the end of the day tomorrow. Now, Longs is going to move to London Britain next. They wanted to get our main program done first. And then come July or August, they're going to be back to us to do those, what I call the winter maintenance repairs. Like on Kimbalot, Churchill, Parsons, and I'm probably missing one, Cavender Lane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then we'll be done. Now, at the same time, we are doing testing on that infiltration pit in Southview Estates. A jetter truck did go in there today, so that's the next step in our testing. And we are going to move to the second part in Thompson Estates where we're going to do like a perk test next to that existing large pit. And we have been in contact with Mr. Johnson because that is just so huge. So I take every opportunity to talk with him that I can. That's it.
So how's the testing? Is it looking good or is things perking the way they're supposed to?
Well, we don't have a good answer yet. So we're working to that end to figure that out.
So just want to kind of compare last year versus this year, we're wrapping up our
thinking the same
road program, what, 4 months earlier than we did last year, the main part of it. I mean, we didn't get started until almost October last year. And this is great. And I guess this was, I guess, we had started early. We kind of had our plan done quickly. So this is congratulations to the team to get this done so quickly, it's very well.
And it's amazing too, Dave, that we got this done so quickly because, the trouble we had with the winter
Mhm.
storms and stuff, because our road program evolved probably 4 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great job, really great job getting this done.
So I think the planning commission report is next, but just to give a little, this can go right from John Gontar's right into Mr. Pizzini. Hopefully he can hear me. I know he's on regarding his subdivision plan. There's Teddy.
Because we don't have any report from the harm.
No, sir. He's on vacation.
Okay.
Okay, the planning commission met on June 13th, and we reviewed the plans of Pizzini and Silver on 508 Auburn Road and 330 North Bank Road. This is a subdivision, but it's more of a boundary line movement. Ms. Silver is looking to transfer or sell 2 acres of land to Mr. Pizzini. And as a result, there's no new lots which are being planned for this. It's largely a boundary line movement. If you want, all right, there's the plan. So Mr. Pizzini is going to have basically 4 acres, whereas before Mrs. Silver had 4 acres. The new lots, no new lots are proposed. It's effectively a boundary line movement. No land development plan is required, thus no storm management plan nor PennDOT plan is required. We discussed whether this was a minor or a major subdivision plan. By our ordinance, because the 4-acre lot is further subdividable, it could fall into the major subdivision plan, but after some discussion, we decided really it was a minor subdivision plan, and we would waive it as such.
So John, can I just ask a couple questions? So
Sure.
Is there like assumptions or something has to be included in the plan that says you can't develop this property? Because once they want to subdivide it and develop it, then you need these plans? Is that the way this works?
Well, the new plan will be such that Mr. Pizzini will have about 4 acres. And Mr. Pizzini, if he wants to in the future, can come in for a subdivision plan, but at that time, he would have to go through the complete plan review process. So,
right. So for this, he has to stipulate that this current plan that you're suggesting we approve it's not a subdivision plan. It's not being developed. And if he wants that to happen, he has to come back, and that will be recorded somewhere, right? There.
What's being recorded is Mr. Pizzini is going to record that in one tax parcel, the old lands of Mr. Pizzini and the new lands which he's purchasing will be one tax parcel. So it will not be divided into multiple parcels. If he wants to divide it into multiple parcels in the future, he's got to come in for a plan that would make that division. So he'd have to go through the complete subdivision ordinance in order to satisfy that requirement. Now, he's got enough land to do that. It's just a matter of putting that information together. And at that time, it would probably, the question would be, would it be a major subdivision plan or a minor? Probably it would be a major. And so we would have to go through that process. So the way it is now, we had a number of points that were brought up by Pannoni in a review letter. We went through those. And what we're recommending as a planning commission is to approve the subdivision as a minor subdivision, but contingent upon the items in the Panoni letter being addressed, Chester County Planning Commission review letter being received and approved, Nate Klein approving all of the above, and the approval of a sewage plan waiver by the Chester County Health Department. The plan is subject to two waivers. One, section 22-202, determining the plan is a minor rather than a major subdivision. And section 22-705-3, no additional right-of-way requirements for this project are required. There'd be no new traffic onto either North Bank or Auburn Road, so we couldn't see the requirement for a right-of-way. And we did not see a requirement for a traffic impact fee. So the plan was approved with those stipulations to be put forward to the Board of Supervisors, and assuming that Mr. Panini has satisfied all the requirements that were there for this traditional plan, then he would put that forward to the Board of Supervisors for approval. So Mr. Phillips moved that the thing be approved. I seconded it. And we approved it 4-0. So that's kind of an overview of it now. Do you have any further questions?
No, I don't think we have any other questions. Seems fairly straightforward.
Yeah, I was at the meeting and, there was a long discussion. And we went over all the details. It was very professionally discussed. I think we talked about any possible scenario. We came up with these two waivers. It looks really good. It's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple concept. Taking one line, moving it so that, the two properties are still the same size, but a line has changed. That's it.
Yeah, we were concerned that it could create a new tax parcel, and we didn't want that. And we were assured that it would not be creating a new tax parcel, that the tax parcel that Mr. Pazzini has would be adjusted to show the new lands that he's purchasing from Ms. Silver. So that satisfied the issue of future subdivisions requiring a full presentation to the Planning Commission and to the Board of Supervisors.
Anybody else have any questions?
I think we're gonna hit the motion later, but
Oh, later,
yeah,
okay.
right, that's fine. Yeah, you
Oh,
want,
right now,
We do
okay.
that.
oh, you wanna go now and skip, oh, because
So-
we don't need the historical commission. Okay.
So Jim, you're gonna read all of these conditions and waivers all the way down to the bottom there.
Okay. All right. Well, all right.
Right, there was one, if we're done with that, I have one more topic. Do you want me to start that?
Is it pertaining? Okay, go ahead.
We also had a discussion of alternate sidewalks. And we had been through this a few times in the past. And Mr. Klein gave a very detailed discussion of the complications of alternate sidewalks on rural roads, particularly in a Franklin Township type of environment. He cited that the township codes for sidewalks, trails, etc., were all pretty decent, and it all required a review by the Board of Supervisors, and he felt that was a good approach. The PC, reviewed these issues, and we decided that, based on Mr. Klein's views, that we have two options really to think about. One is state roads. We really cannot do a lot with state roads, because with a state road, we've got to go to the state and get state buy-in and agreements before we can do anything. So there's a lot of roads in a township which fall under that. The other type of road we have in a township are township roads. And we talked about probably the easiest thing to do to ensure pedestrian safety and post box safety. And what that is people getting out to their post boxes without being hit by cars, was to look at the roads that are controlled by the township and where we have some options as to what we do. And we said, well, no matter what we do, it's going to be a budgetary issue. And probably the best way of moving forward with this would be to look at the road program that we're putting together for the next couple of years and say, is there a way we can make some additions or changes or alterations to the road program to incorporate some of these public safety and mailbox safety issues? And I think there was a general agreement that that seemed like a good way to go. Mr. Johnson was there. And what we talked about was when you look at your 2025 plan or 2026 plan and look at the roads that you're going to be looking at for work or whatever, then the PC could look at those and say, okay, what is it we can do on those to improve the public safety from a walkability point of view or a post box safety from that perspective. And this, all that would come out of that would be recommendations, and the recommendations would have to go to the Board of Supervisors and would hopefully go in time before the road program was put through to see if there's actually any money required or any money available to make improvements. But it's kind of the process we were looking at. It's starting a new process, kind of in a piecemeal fashion. But the nice thing it does is it allows us to address things such as telephone poles, mailbox locations, things of that order. So to that end, I did some work and looked up what the U.S. government has for recommendations for post box placements on roadways. And there are some guidelines the DOT has. And so those are probably worthwhile taken into consideration when we when and if we move forward on this. I also talked to the postmaster at Campbellsville, at Landenberg and at Campbellsville, and particularly at Landenberg, where they have a male driver. He looks at places where he can pull off the road as basically a safety zone. So for example, my post office box is back around 3 or 4 feet from the road further than normal. And he loves that because he can pull off and put his mailbox, the mail into the box without having to be looking behind his head to see if other cars are coming in and slam him. So the postmasters locally like that idea. It's just a matter of how well we can move that kind of an idea forward. So it's kind of where we sit. So it's really something for the future and something that's associated with what you're going to be doing with your road programs in 2025 and 6.
John, if I can just add one thing, one of the things that was really resonated with me in that conversation was that if we can get, if somebody buys a property and is going to develop it, and we're actually going to be doing something on that road, or two things, road program and the development are two different things. But if there's flat surface, or if there's surface that can be flattened by the developer if they're developing, that's all they're looking for, like some kind of flat surface that somebody can walk off the road and walk on grass. Mm-hmm. He showed a picture, and I'm an idiot, so pictures say 1,000 words to me sometimes, but that's what resonated with me, just to look at a picture. But some places on our roads, there's like a wall of rock. You can't walk on that. And there's a guardrail on the other side. So, that's the things we got to look at in the future.
And I'm surprised driving down some of these roads where the mailbox is right on the road. And so people are coming out. Good Hope Road is a good example. Yeah, I'll be driving down and there's someone in the road checking their mail, terrible sight lines. And I don't know how that got approved.
I'm one of those people.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that that was allowed. Yeah, so I think it's definitely worth exploring when we start working on our road program, what we can do about these mailboxes, because it's definitely can be a problem. So, all right, thank you, John. I appreciate the update.
That's all. Thank you.
All right, so Jim.
Yeah, we'll go back to the Bazzini Silver subdivision plan. So I'll make a motion that the board accept the Franklin Township Planning Commission's recommendation from their June 6, 2024 meeting to conditionally approve final and minor subdivision plan prepared for Leo Bazzini II, dated May 6, 2024, with the following conditions and waivers. There are 3 conditions. The first is applicant successfully address all outstanding items in the Pannoni review letter dated May 29, 24. The second one is the receipt of the Chester County Planning Commission's review letter and approved sewage planning waiver by the Chester County Health Department and their review and approval by Nate Klein, our township engineer. And the third is all township escrow accounts be paid in full prior to the recorded plan being released to the applicant. The 2 waivers are as follows. The first one is granting a waiver from section 22-202, determining this plan is a final minor rather than major subdivision plan, as the parcels will remain the same and only the plot lines will be removed and recorded. The second is granting a waiver from section 22-705.3, no additional right-of-way requirements for this project, and that no traffic impact fee is required for this project. Do I have a second?
Oh, there you go. Donna,
Donna,
second.
thank you, Donna. Any other discussion for this proposed motion?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it passes 5-0. Thank you, everyone.
Congratulations, Mr. Bazzini.
Yes.
Thank you.
Do you want me to go next, David? It's the land development extension?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that the board approve the Nori Hecroc June 6, 2024 request letter that would extend the review clock of a subdivision plan until December 31st, 2024. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks, Jim. And this is, we've done this a number of times. Is there any discussion?
Was there any input from Nori about what his plan is here? Because we've been doing this for a couple of years now, and I'm happy to do it. It's just, I would like to know if he has a plan or what he's waiting for.
I think it could be a monetary issue right now. So I will be talking with him as we go along.
Just to see what it is. Okay,
Yep.
that's fine. It's a pretty easy thing to
You
approve.
said you've been doing it for years. It's been years before you even got on the board. So this has been going on.
Oh, okay, so this has been-
No, I think you have a good question. I'm glad you asked the question. So we just need an update. Yeah.
All right.
But we can vote now. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Okay. So thanks, Betsy. So motion carries 5-0.
It's time for a solicitor's report. Melissa Ryan Statter is here.
Okay, I'm gonna keep this as brief as possible. I'm going to give you legal side, and then Stan, I'm gonna ask if you can give a little bit of the background information, since I know you've been a part of this, and kind of taking lead. So from legal's perspective, we did receive a 3-party agreement. Those parties are the operator, the township, and the developer here. That recent agreement included new insurance requirements that the township recommended. The developer and the operator both agreed to those insurance requirements, so we're just in the final processes of looking at the agreement now. The only reason this is really on the agenda is not for a vote. We just wanted to give you a little bit of background information. It will be on the agenda for approval next month.
Okay.
So Stan, I'll leave any of the background information to you.
Sure, thank you. As the board probably knows, the information Melissa was just talking about was related to a proposed wastewater treatment plant operator proposed by the developer at Lexington Point. And that's consistent with the wastewater treatment plant agreement between the township and the developer out there. As I believe the board also knows, DEP requires that there be a licensed operator. That operator, whomever the township ends up selecting, needs to be in place before the plant can officially be started up forget everything else. For DEP regulations, we have to have that operator. So the developer has provided multiple submissions at this point for their proposed operator. We had initially reviewed that, their first submission that came in April. They made some revisions. I sent out a letter last week with an updated review and information on it. At this point, they had satisfied all of our prior comments. They had provided several references. I called the references. 2 of the 4 returned the call. Both responses were very favorable. Several gentlemen from this firm, EEMA O&M Incorporated, which is quite a mouthful, but several of those folks were out at the treatment plant site with me and other folks from AECOM as we were evaluating status of the plant over the course of the past couple months. They seem to know their stuff very well. So, at this point, I really can't offer any caveats about the proposed operator. I think it's just a matter for the board to review the information. Let me know if you have any questions.
So Stan, I got lots of questions. And so, and I'm happy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm happy to ask them now, but Dave and I were talking a little bit before the meeting. I know this delays us a little bit, but we have just a meeting that all we talk about is this, a particular subject. So and this would not be until August. So the beginning of August, we could get together and just do a Lexington Point meeting and just go through it. And I'll just give you a sense of some of my questions. So
sure.
There's first of all, there's a bunch of people's names in this paper. I didn't meet them like you did, but it's like words like have a lot of experience, or it's not, I'm not I want to see a resume. I want to know how many years experience. It just feels too high level. Here's 3 sentences about these folks. And then I don't understand how they work together. It's like 6 different people listed, and you have a controller, an operator, and the operator's assistant, and blah, 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 blah. So I think we as a board need to be educated how this works. Mm-hmm. The other stuff is there's things that that this group that we're gonna work with, they'll provide, but then there's a third party that has to be brought in for about 5 different items. And so understanding how that's going to work and what the costs are associated with all that stuff, because none of that's in there yet. So, and of course we can't go anywhere until we know how much this is going to cost our residents. So that was another thing. And then I think the third thing on the top of my head was that we're going to get these reports, right? We're just not going to be able to look at a report. So that means there's going to be, in my humble mind, we're going to be using you or someone like you to look at these reports and tell us what they mean. Is everything good or not? And that's another cost that needs to be brought into the overall cost of what this project is going to cost the residents. And I'm sure once these guys get their heads in it, I think there's going to be other questions and just to understand how big this is, how we're going to manage it, what costs are going to be associated with that, because there's no way we can do this on our own. So that's just the top level of my questions, but I'm glad you like them. I'm just, and I haven't gotten into the legal stuff yet, because so I just think we need a thorough discussion of the liability and who pays for what if something goes wrong. I think we could spend an hour or so, hour and a half talking about all this stuff.
Donna, you're asking the maintenance company to come and explain those things.
No, I want to talk to Stan, and I want to talk to our person.
Oh, no, I'm just saying initially, don't you want to hear something from the proposed maintenance company on how things work?
Whatever Stan thinks is best.
However, can you explain to us, Stan?
Yeah. That's not a bad idea.
Okay.
I think, Don, I think some of your questions and specifically to that point, the organizational structure, exactly how their team works, I can't fully answer that. And I think that would warrant questions directly to the proposed operator. They do have, I will say that they do have a person that would be assigned to be the primary operator out there. And that individual also operates a wastewater treatment plant in Lincoln University, which is very, very nearby, of course. How the rest of the group works together, though, the complete structure, I can't really say, and that's something that only they could describe, or I could ask them to explain that better in writing if the board would like. Yeah.
So Stan, we have what Donna was referring to as our monthly workshop meeting. This is just a meeting where we typically don't make any major decisions. We just dedicate a couple hours to talk about something that we want to deep dive into. The next one that we're going to have is August 5th. And if we, and those that, and that's from 7, that starts at 7, usually 7 to 9, may go longer. I don't think they've ever have. But I'd like to have, if you could, you know, if you and perhaps the contractor that we're looking at could be at that meeting, virtual is obviously fine, to help answer questions and help us understand what the situation is.
You want legal there too?
Yeah, if you can make it and answer questions, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm sure either Guy or Vince Pompo or I will be able to make it at that point. I know Vince has been kind of taking lead on handling this agreement, and he has the agreement completed. I'm sure he'd be happy giving it to the board if you'd like to look at a draft. I think a lot of your questions would be answered regarding liability and whose responsibility
You
it
can
is.
read this and it's mumbo jumbo, so.
Sure.
So you would have to explain. I mean, I think you guys know, this is a big deal for us, right? We've never done any of this before. And we're gonna be stepping into the unknown, and it's gonna be on us. I know there's a period of time in between where the developer still manages some, is responsible for some costs, but it's gonna be in our hands, and it's something that we have to carry, plus the residents. It's, there's a number in here, I think it was $2,800, that's just for the operator, but then there's all this other stuff. That's $2,800 a month divided, this is not minor, right? And it doesn't even touch all the costs that.
No, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think I could offer a little bit more explanation on that point anyway. You know, Donna, you're absolutely right. There's additional costs there. It's noted in our letter about additional subcontractor costs that would need to come into it. For the purpose of, I think the township selection of a DEP licensed operator, that's a critical issue, but a separate issue all the same. As you'll note in our letter, we have, you know, the developer needs to propose those subcontracted firms and give us what their costs may be. Those are all figures that will include in the total for an O&M budget, which ultimately would be the basis of establishing rates out there. So that, you know, providing that information is something that has been on the developer's to-do list for quite some time. It has not yet happened. The board is not yet in a position to have any of the information to consider what the user rates might be out there.
You make a good point, Stan. I think I put too many things at once. If we could just focus on August meeting in terms of the operator, who that operator is, how they work, how they'll work with us, I think that will be a good use of our time. And with the understanding that there's additional costs, but that's going to be handled in another way. Right. And then, and legal's there to say, okay, because it's a contract is about the contract between the three of us, right? It's us, the operator, and the developer.
Yeah.
So I think if we could just focus on those two things, I think that would be a real worthwhile meeting. But you know, I know this is bigger than that, but we've got to take it one step at a time.
All right. So thank you, Stan. I don't know if we have any other questions at this.
Hey, Stan, a quick one. Last month, I think we talked about the tank that they had there that was leaking. Did you ever have a chance to talk about that to them?
Yes, yeah. The tank, they did bring in a new tank, which is great. The glitches, we've not yet gotten them to remove the old tank, which they had been instructed to do immediately. That has not yet happened.
Where's the new tank?
Well, the new tank's sitting immediately beside it. They replumbed to go around it. The old, we've told the developer that they will not. It would be our recommendation the township not issue any additional building permits to them until they do that, regardless of what other criteria they may have met that would qualify them for building permits. It's my impression that has been the only thing that has resulted in some recent action. They did have a contractor out there last week evaluating how they're going to get the old tank out of there, because frankly, I don't think it's going to come out in one piece. It's been sitting there for 15 years. It's rusty. It's probably not structurally sound to hook up to a truck and drag down the road anymore. So they have moved it. They have replumbed around it. When I say moved it, they've moved it about 10 feet from its original location. I think just to get a better assessment of structurally what they're working with out there, but they do still need to get rid of it. The bright side is, however, the actual functioning of the pump and haul facility hasn't been a problem. We did have an episode where there was where we were monitoring increasing tank levels. One of our regular inspection checks is actually measuring the depth of the liquid in the tanks out there. We saw a period of successive days where the levels were increasing anomalously. We haven't seen anything like that before. So in reaching out to the pumper, to the developer, crunching some numbers, it was clear that the 6 additional homes that have been built and occupied within the course of the past few months have started generating the flow that would kind of make sense for those homes. And we've been working with the developer and the pumper, and they've adjusted their pumping schedule to make sure things stay on top of it better. At this point, I think that's all under control. The as I guess if the board wouldn't mind indulging me for just a few more minutes, if I could give you a little bit more background on status out there. The wastewater treatment plant and the drip disposal system is substantially complete. That means in general, the guts of the treatment, the guts of the disposal system are all there, functional, and if somebody were to flip a switch now, could be doing what they need to be doing. There's still a number of odds and ends that need to be done before final startup. In addition to all of the legal and administrative stuff we were talking about, the operator, all the other things the developer is obligated to do. But at this point, they have gotten by that milestone, and that milestone does do one thing for them, most notably in the agreement with the township. It enables them to potentially get additional building permits, 3 additional building permits. Hence the importance of getting the old frac tank out, because that is, at this point, I believe, the only restriction preventing any additional building permits out there. Is there any additional questions? Anything I can help with?
Yes, I don't know. I don't think this is one of your questions, but I know there was an issue of parking. Is that going to, do you know how, something about the safety and all that good stuff with Lexington?
That has been resolved for the model home.
Okay.
We are still working on and discussing the other situation. We don't have a complete answer yet, but the township team has met with Lexington Point about it.
Is this something that, watch my, how to say it. So is this something that we would tell Lexington Point, we need to have this resolved before we'll agree to any more permits? Or is this something that would be not, like, they don't really have to, it's not required, like we didn't make any agreement. This would be nice of them to come along with us on this.
We're making that determination with the help of Guy and Melissa.
Stan, just out of curiosity, do they have the lots sold, but they haven't issued the bill, or they haven't applied for the building permits yet?
I haven't directly asked that question, but I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. They're very upset that they haven't been able to get additional building permits. They wouldn't be very upset if they didn't have buyers who they've already committed to, or as upset as they are now. Yeah.
We have 5 permits that we're holding here until we get direction from Stan and legal.
The saga continues. You know. So
Okay.
anything else for us on Lexington Point?
I have nothing further from Lex. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so we're you have a question?
I just had do the people know that they're gonna owe a substantial amount of more money to all the people who
So
own
that's
the
a good-
houses? Or do they know this is coming, and what happens if they can't afford it?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think the obligation would be on the developer to alert them. I've made the suggestion in the past that we send them a letter to let them know where we're at and that we'll be taking over, and that this is going to be the estimated costs to the residents. I think the question would be, is that an appropriate course of action for us to take?
Yeah, Tom, that's a great question for our legal conversation.
Yeah. But I think that's something that we also want to probably broach at our workshop meeting when we have our workshop meeting. Because we've talked about that in the past too, which
Right.
is, I don't know if they're aware, because they've been enjoying free sewage for almost 2 decades. And now it's going to go to a pretty significant amount of money.
Well,
to
and my
handle.
concern is what, what if they leave the houses? Are we,
Well, the interesting thing is, and I think the more houses, the better for
Right.
the wastewater treatment
Right.
plant. You want these houses built,
correct?
right? And so it will help with cost, but also it
Yes.
helps with the functioning of
Yes.
the wastewater treatment plant. So, yeah, it's gonna be fun, but it's when we take it over, it's ours. So we're gonna have to, I would think we would have to pay for it if it came to that. I know there's rules that the residents are responsible, but if there's literally not enough residents, somebody's gonna have to do it. So I'm sure we'll work with our lawyers.
And I'm sorry, a real quick answer to that is, yes, somebody's gonna have to pay for it, and by the terms of the agreement, for at least 5 years after the township takes ownership of it, that somebody's the developer. They're obligated to pay for the operating deficit for a maximum period of 5 years after that. Operating deficit meaning, which would result, for example, if rates were set on all 38 homes being occupied and they weren't, we would have an operating deficit.
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So I think, what we'll do is we'll continue this conversation at our August 5th. Did I say August 5th meeting? And hopefully we can talk to the contractor then and answer some of our questions. And the
Sure.
Operator. Yeah.
Sure. If it's okay with the board, I'll contact the operator Keystone
Absolutely.
and coordinate with Jeff and see if we can get them lined up for the August 5th meeting.
Well,
That'd be fantastic.
I have another one for you. So I know you said there were 4 references, or you went after 4 references and you got 2. Can we get one more? Like I always like to have 3.
I will try again for the other 2. Absolutely.
Melissa?
Yeah, we can move on to the MS4 as long as no one has any other questions about Lexington Point. Okay, we'll save them for August.
Thank you, Stan.
Quite welcome.
Thanks, Stan. So for the MS4 matter, I did meet with Guy this week. He said he received some emails last week regarding the PRP contract. The version that he received was actually addressed to Londonderry Township. So he had to reach back out to gain clarification as to whether or not that was our agreement with the wrong township name, or how that was handled. He was told that they essentially use the same form for each township and they input different township names. Guy did a side-by-side analysis this week and literally went through line by line to make sure the agreements were the same. He said they are substantively the same. There are a couple changes in boilerplate language. However, Guy had he didn't feel that that was necessary for us to add into our agreement, because they are such cut and dry language. It wouldn't protect the township or have any issues for the township whether or not they were included. Guy still needs a little bit more time to complete final revisions. And I do believe there may be some changes from Ron Reagan. We did have a meeting, Jeff, Donna, me, and Guy with Ron, and we discussed his ability to change the PRP agreement if needed. And we did come to the conclusion that the PRP plan is going to be, because it was paid for by the township, it is the product of the township, and Ron is able to change it if we need that. So the PRP is actually close to being completed at this point, or at least coming to a final point. The TMDL plan is a little bit behind that. There's some comments that still need to be addressed, and Ron is going to be involved with the TMDL plan as well. He's going to get some pricing together about his services and how he can help us in that matter. And we as in Land Mackerlane are going to look as to how we can involve Ron in this, just to get it a little bit more finalized at this point. So to summarize everything, the PRP is almost done. TMDL needs a little bit more work.
Yeah, I don't know if everyone realizes it, because I don't know when where you guys were brought into these conversations, but we got comments back from DEP. So, and that I actually think is it's a good thing, right? So and it wasn't 12 pages of comments. It was like 5 comments for the PRP and 5 comments or whatever it was, 4 comments for TMDL. I can't tell you they're easy, but at least it gives Ron a direction of where to go. And he's the guy. You gotta love the guy, right? So he was gonna just do a little bit, but he's into it now. So he's full in. He's gonna take this over with the crew that he works with, and move this forward. So I think we're in good hands.
Good. Okay, good. Glad we're getting that moving forward.
Thank you, Donna.
And that's all we have for the solicitor's report.
All right. Well, thank you very much. So that brings us to public comment. This public comment can include any comments on anything attendees might want to share. Commenters must state their name and whether they are a township resident or a taxpayer of the township. Do we have any public comment?
Yeah, this is John Auerbach, township resident, 46 years, former supervisor. But just to answer that one question that came up related to Lexington Point about whether the residents know about their obligation. And I can assure you that they do, because the agreement that they signed with the developer to purchase the house had that language built into it. We've had many meetings with the original 6 people, and all of them did know that they're eventually going to have to pay for this, although certainly the cost hasn't been established yet, but they know it's a substantial cost coming their way. Related to the comments that Donna made, she's right on the mark. And I think you need to get those questions answered promptly so that the township can understand fully what their obligations are going to be in the future. It's coming to you pretty soon. There is an item that I talked about some time ago related to the administration of the wastewater treatment plant, meaning who's going to manage the collection, the bills and the mailings and all that stuff. And that would be who, what scope, and what the cost is. Certainly the township staff is not equipped to do that. So I haven't heard a whole lot of discussion about that lately, but that's a key item the township needs to pursue, is to find a contractor or supplier who can actually do this kind of work and manage the collections. Certainly delinquencies could be an issue. Related to the Mount Olivet Bridge, that's interesting in that the bridge was originally designed for traffic, but is not being maintained and officially inspected for normal traffic for appropriate reasons, because it's a pedestrian bridge. So the bridge has really lost its certification for traffic because of lack of inspections and maintenance. It's a point that you might want to bring up with the DCNR. The only other point I had is that related to the Fall Festival and the farming theme, recently Dave Hawking just harvested a bunch of hay on our farm. I did take a bunch of photos of the process, and I'll put them together with an explanation of what happened. And I'll send it to the board and staff so you've got some more understanding of the details of some of the farming that goes on in Franklin Township.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you, John. That's nice.
No further comments.
Okay. All right. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Any other public comment? All right, not hearing any. I make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting at 9:07.
Second.
I get a second. All right, any discussion?
That's Jim's job. He always does it.
All right, thank you, Jim, for seconding. All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, motion carries 5-0. Good